Welcome to Minority Focus. I'm your host, Jimmie Moore. West Kentucky Community and Technical College has so very, very much to offer in so very, very many ways. Education, of course, being of the most important things they have to offer. But there's a variety of things that a number of people do that I sincerely hope some people who haven't will check out. Very interesting things that are not things you normally get exposed to in the course of sometimes a life. And Paducah has it to offer. Gail Robinson-Butler is with us on the show today. We're going to talk about some of the upcoming things that she's about presenting or bringing to Paducah, to the college, to Paducah for that matter, for your personal enjoyment. There are a lot of what you call 1-2 punches with people, married people in particular. Gail is, I don't know whether to say 1 or 2 part. I'll say she's number 1 of the 1-2 punch. She and Tom that do so many fantastic things out here. I've talked with you before, Gail, and once we talked and you were sharing with me all that's involved in getting these shows out here. That was a long time ago, and I think I still got a headache.
Well, sometimes I have a headache.
I imagine.
Sometimes I have a headache. When you're doing live theater and bringing in professional touring artists from all over the country, there are just days that you get headaches. But along with the headaches, we get a great feeling of satisfaction. And you mentioned how education is the most important aspect of what we do at the college, and that is entirely correct. Senator Paul Simon, who is now deceased, said once that when we are all gone, the buildings, the roads, the bills that were passed in Congress will be nothing to show what we are or what we were, but the art that is created during our lifetimes will last for an eternity. Wow. So I think it is part of our mission to not only present something for the enjoyment of the Paducah community, but also to educate them on different kinds of arts and to expose them to things that, as you said, many people may not see even once in their lifetime. And so we want to change that. We want people to get out of the mindset of a 30-minute television show or an hour and 20-minute movie that they might go and see and get the instant gratification of a movie that probably took years to produce. Well, when they come here and see a live performance, our performers, our tech crew, me, everybody else that works on whatever is happening that day at that event in this venue have one shot to get it right. There's no editing, there's no backing up and starting over again. It's live. So they have an audience sitting in front of them, and luckily for me, most of the time, almost all the time, that audience leaves happy, which leads us into our focus series. But before we talk about it, I want to take a look at something that Dan Shepard, the producer of this show, produced to help us market the 5 shows in the Arts and Focus series. Take it away, Dan. West Kentucky Community and Technical College Clemens Fine Arts Center presents our new season. This is the 70s, September 13th. Noam, Pikelny, and Stuart Duncan, October 18th. Blind Boys of Alabama, February 13th. Buddy, the Buddy Holly Story, March 28th. Feet Don't Fail Me Now, April 24th. For tickets, call 270-534-3212.
Wow. While the clip was running, Gail was saying, that's going to be good. That too. And it's all going to be great. This is some awesome things that you...
We're very proud of what we're doing this year. And we've been booked for quite a while because it took us from January when I was in New York, and for one show even before I left Paducah to go to New York where we attend the booking conference. That has been booked for months and months and months. And that is the first show of the season. It is on September the 13th, which is a Saturday. It will be preceded by an opening reception in the Student Center of the Clemens Fine Arts Center at 6:15 on September the 13th, and everyone who's holding a ticket, whether it be a season ticket, a single ticket, is invited to attend and help us to celebrate the opening of another season. This is the 70s. We'll follow up a show that we did last year by Lyric Media out of Los Angeles, California, and this is the 60s, and people left saying, please, please bring the 70s show back. So that's what we are doing. That will open our season. So that's very exciting. We're really happy about that particular presentation. And then on Saturday, October the 18th, this was the one that Jimmie said, ooh, I can't, that'll be good.
Right.
And that's Noam, Pikelny, and Stuart, Duncan. Noam is known as probably the #1 banjo player, maybe in the world today, but especially in America. Wow. He's young. He is also one of the original members and still plays with Punch Brothers, which features Chris Thiele and many other wonderful instrumentalists as well as some vocalists in that group. And Noam will be here. He has a new release coming out very soon that the bluegrass world is waiting for. I think that it will really take off very soon, and it should be quite exciting. Stuart Duncan, who will be with Noam, and by the way, this is their first ever duo tour for the two of them together. Wow. And so Paducah is one of the stops on this tour. One of my friends emailed me after he noticed that we were doing it and said, are you kidding me? I just bought tickets to go see this somewhere in Tennessee and paid more. So, you know, I'm really excited about you bringing this show here, and we're excited about it too. Stuart has 5 Grammys, and Noam has 1 Grammy nomination, or not Grammy, Grammy nominations. So they're both going to be great. The music that night should be wonderful, and it attracts a special audience of a lot of times young people who are very well drawn to that style of music, which isn't the old-fashioned bluegrass like we're used to listening to, but it has a new edge to it.
Right. That's awesome. While you're talking, I'm thinking, my mind is in the background, and I'm thinking about all these people here that do what they do, you of course, all the people that come with the shows.
Oh yeah.
And what they do, and organizing all these people who haven't worked together yet, and coordinating and all of that.
Last year we did Moscow Festival Ballet here. It was our last show of the season, and it was during the quilt show. There are 50 members in the company. We had a crew, a house crew, which means the people we supply, of 25. So we fed 75 people backstage that evening, and you know, like breakfast that morning for their load-in, lunch, and then when the dancers arrived, dinner, and then when they left, food for the road.
Wow.
And these are all Russian ballet dancers, and it was really an exciting day and evening, and a great show. And we hope to have as much excitement this year, because after Noam and Stuart leave in October, then in February, on Friday, February 13th, and that's not an unlucky day, Jimmie, that's going to be a lucky day for Paducah, because we're going to have something happen in Paducah that day that I can safely say has never happened before. The Blind Boys of Alabama will be playing WKCTC Clemens Fine Arts Center.
So you had to have heard of them. Had to have heard of the Blind Boys.
Well, if not, they will hear of them before all of this is over. The Blind Boys of Alabama have been playing together since 1944. They first played together as a group at the, I have to get this right, the Alabama Institute for the Negro Blind. And they played together for the very first time way back when.
I remember hearing about them when I was a child.
They have 5 Grammys. I mean, you don't get 5 Grammys unless you're doing a great job somewhere. And they have, in fact, just released a new album, which is called I'll Find a Way, and it's produced by Bon Iver's Justin Vernon. And I had to look to make sure I got that Justin's last name correct. But young people will recognize that. And he said he had been in love with their music, not necessarily the lyrics of their music, because they do a lot of gospel music, but they do it, in fact, they're known for their gospel music.
Well, rap, country, whatever you're listening, your particular listening enjoyment is, you're in a box. need to get out of your box.
Right.
Especially
right.
if you're musically or instrument, whatever, inclined to hear what something else sounds like, particularly with the music behind it.
Right.
And what you mentioned, the banjo player.
Yes.
A lot of people don't think about banjo music.
As
but
being something
it's
you would
an
listen
art.
to. Oh, this is really
and it's an
art.
amazing instrument. But you have
Yes.
to give it, you have to listen to it.
You do, and you have to listen to it in different ways. I mean, for instance, in bluegrass and country, the fiddle is a fiddle.
Right.
If you're listening to classical music, an almost identical instrument is a violin.
Right.
And so it just depends on, I mean, the banjo is always a banjo, but it's the same kind of thing. All of the stringed instruments will give you a different sound, will give you a different feel, and create a different kind of sound for the audience to listen to.
And of late, I've noticed that a lot of, you would think, instruments that don't belong are being incorporated into orchestras.
yes.
Great orchestras, famous orchestras.
It's done a lot.
Are including a lot of different kinds of instruments.
It's done a lot. In fact, Chris Thiele, who was here with Punch Brothers several years ago, played Carnegie Hall, and he plays mandolin.
Yeah.
And, I mean, so when you start thinking about things like that, you're right. Don't ever put people or instruments in a box
sure.
because then you limit the capacity to do the best
instruments
work.
and music and all of that are crossing our boundaries.
Right.
So listeners should
Exactly.
allow themselves to.
So when people think of the Blind Boys of Alabama, I don't want them simply to think of a very famous gospel group, but I want them to think of blues music that they have given gospel music, the blues feel. It's amazing. I saw them in New York at B.B. King's Supper Club, and it was just something to see. It was truly something to see. And one of the original players is still with them. His name is Jimmy Carter, and he is still going strong. And all of the lead singers, all of the front men are indeed blind.
Right. That's awesome. I've heard people talk that wonder about that, whether, in one case, whether they're actually blind.
Oh, they are.
In another case, whether these are the original guys. Well, no, they're not, obviously.
Well, one of them is, and then there's a second one that played with them on their recording that I just mentioned. But Jimmy was with them when I saw them, and you just couldn't hold him back. He was really amazing and great.
Before we get away, Gail, touch the 70s, the show that the 70s.
The 70s? Oh, okay. Again, this is the 70s. It is multimedia, it is music, a full band, dancers, vocalists, and the multimedia footage, or the footage that you will see, will be projected on large screens on stage behind the performers, and it's actual film and video footage of that decade, of the 1970s decade. So you're going to hear all kinds of music. You're going to want to get up and dance. It's just, and it will touch on many of the groups that became famous during that time, and it will take you from 1970, right where the 1960s show left up, through 1979.
Wow.
So it will help, if you grew up in the 70s or loved the music of the 70s, this is definitely a show for you. And, people should be dancing in the aisles, at least tapping their foot pretty loud.
You pass an era where, the music that you listened to at that time either follows you, and it's all that follows you, or you pick up on each decade as it as it evolves with the music. In the 70s, the 60s and 70s were an awesome time.
Oh, they were. They were music.
I always thought, Gail, that the songs back then said something. You could memorize the lyrics. You could.
Some of them did.
A lot of them did.
But then there were some of the random songs that maybe did not, and you may hear some of that at this show too, because they became famous because of just the random thoughts within that. And music does take great strides, and many times the change in the music is motivated by what's going on in the country. Sure. And then the music, as it grows, motivates the people, and it's clearly happened with the 60s and 70s.
Someone talked about, I think a comedian mentioned the song that the Beatles did, and the lyrics were, somebody's knocking on the door, somebody's knocking on the door, somebody's knocking on the door, let them in. Great lyrics, but it fit with what they were doing at the at
right.
the time. And
Well, they can do no wrong.
yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, they can do no
know
wrong.
that, you know.
But that you're right, and you can watch various artists' music progress through the decade too. You know, a song that they did, especially. All right, let's take the Beatles. Although they broke up in the 1970s, you know, the songs that they first recorded when they came over were much simpler. Maybe the message was a little bit less, and you know, there's some talk about the Beatles being delusional sometimes, and the use of hallucinogenics and all that, and that's probably so, and that went along with the decade, but it doesn't change the fact that the music that they made is remembered now by
Made a whole
everybody.
lot of money.
They made a whole
off
lot
of their
of money.
delusions, if you will.
Well, and they weren't delusions, but you know,
No,
sometimes they were drug
no.
induced, and you know, and that's just something that everybody knows about that era and the musicians that played in it. And in fact, we lost a lot of wonderful musicians to that during that time frame.
For sure.
Which takes us not to someone we lost, but not of that decade and not of their own doing. Buddy, the Buddy Holly story, is of course the story of legendary rock musician Buddy Holly. Many people think that rock and roll was born with Elvis or the Beatles or one of those guys. Well, Buddy made huge changes in the world of music. You know, this bespectacled guy, young guy from Texas, just made huge, huge changes. And as people know, he was killed in an airplane accident going from one gig to another with Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper. So you will not only hear the music of those three artists, and especially of Buddy, but this is a full musical production. There's a story, there's dialogue, there's sets, there's props, there's lights. So it's a theatrical production.
It's one of those Buddy Holly did, from what I recall. I'll never be able to forget. And I mentioned earlier about the music making sense, the lyrics making sense. If you've got a problem, tell me what it is. I can help. If your child needs a father, I can. And it meant something.
Now,
the
I'm
message
not sure
was.
if that's a Buddy Holly story or
Wasn't
not,
it?
but maybe.
If you've got a problem, don't know what it is.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is. But some of his bigger ones were Peggy Sue,
Yeah.
That'll Be the Day,
That'll Be
Not
the-
Fade Away, and then Oh Boy. And then Ritchie Valens, you'll hear from him that night in one of his, maybe his very biggest hits, because he was really cut short.
This is the beauty of this, of what you're doing, because I grew up in a place that didn't have black music, if you will. I'll say black music. The one radio station that played what it wanted, and we listened to that. So I listened to a lot of music that people would call white music, or
Right.
white musicians, or what have you.
And see, that's what I want to change.
Yeah.
I want to make everybody's music everybody's music.
Yeah.
You know, if I could do one thing in my career as a presenter of performing arts, I would like to cut that line. I would like to make that line go away, and the ethnic and cultural division of what people get in their minds that they think they like needs to go away.
Yeah.
And we need to get people exposed to various kinds of music. And I think we've been fairly successful at that, but I could stand to be a lot more
People say
successful.
thinking outside the box, listen outside the box.
Right.
You know.
And one of the things that people who present arts, whether it be performing arts or visual arts, they want you to broaden and broaden participation and the level of participation. For instance, if an audience comes to see a show we're doing, we would like for them to do something else to go along with that. Maybe a workshop, maybe a post-show discussion, maybe a meet and greet after the show. So that rather than just see the show, leave the theater and go, wow, wasn't that good, they may actually learn something about how that show came to be, what that show meant to the producer, what that show meant to the writer. And but back to Buddy, this is the 20th anniversary tour of this show. And then, of course, it was on Broadway. So it is sometimes said that it is the most successful rock and roll musical.
Right.
So we're excited about that one.
A lot of people, you mentioned that Paducah was going to do something that hadn't been done before, which it is. And a lot of people are it's important to them to experience something that has never been experienced before.
Right.
One of the things that's involved is seeing somebody. There used to be an Orlando Griffith show where there was, no, wasn't that, it was All My Children, something. I don't remember what it was, but in the show, one of the famous people in the city was the man who met Andy Griffith.
Oh,
You know,
right,
you know,
right.
you know. So if you want to see somebody that you've never seen, that you may never see again, that the majority of people have never seen or heard, this is an opportunity to do that.
Right. I mean, and seeing them on TV or, you know, hearing their music on an album or even watching a video on YouTube is not the same, I promise. You know, they're right there. Our theater has 472 seats. It's an intimate setting, and it is a wonderful way to enjoy performance.
Tickets.
Tickets are available now. You can purchase them online at artsinfocus.org, or you can call our box office between 8:30 and 4 Monday through Friday, and that number is 270-534-3212. Online tickets can be purchased 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Plenty of them available.
We are right now in season sales. We just started single show sales August 1st. So now if you want, and I've noticed that the 70s, this is the 70s, and Noam and Stuart show is already getting some single sale hits.
How far does the surrounding area get into this?
How far?
Do you have, how much?
Oh,
mean,
you know,
do you have
depending
any
on the
idea?
show, we reach a 3 to 4 state area, you know, because of course we cover Western Kentucky and Southern Illinois, Eastern or Western Tennessee, and Missouri.
So you announce, whatever you're doing, whatever you're bringing here, it's announced at SIU, and
We do our very best.
I wonder if there was a
Sometimes-
coordination.
Sometimes I feel that we're the best kept secret in town because people will come to our shows and say, wow, we didn't know you did that here.
Right.
And I'm thinking, wow, what can I do to get the word out more? So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it with you and whoever will listen, frankly. And our last show in the subscription series, which is what we've been talking about, is honestly one of my very favorites. They have been here before. They were here 5 years ago. The name of the company is Rhythmic Circus. The name of the show is Feet Don't Fail Me Now. And it has 4 of the most fantastic tap dancers. I mean, it is rapid fire tap dance. Don't come if you're expecting Fred and Ginger,
Right.
because that's not what you're going to see. They're backed by a live band, a beatbox guy, and a lot of the music that the band plays is original. This show, since it was here, has been off Broadway for an extended run. Then they were in Asia, and right now they're in Belgium. So, and then they're going to come home and start a USA tour again, and they will be here on, I got to get this one right, April 24th, which is a Friday. All of the shows that we've been talking about start at 7:30 p.m.
You said the band, not a soundtrack.
Oh, no.
The band?
No, a band. There's a full band, and they're awesome. And they're from Minneapolis, and they're truly amazing. And the beatbox guy is, and the show is funny. The band is wonderful. There's one song in it that I love, and one of them is actually called Feet Don't Fail Me Now. And it's just this, Feet Don't Fail Me Now. It's a great song. But there's one about the boogeyman hiding under the bed. And, you know, so much of the things that they're going to be performing will be original. And then when you see the footwork that goes with this, I mean, they can do anything. It's just totally amazing. There's great costumes. Remember, this played off Broadway in New York, so you know, the show is a wonderful show. The costumes are good. The dancers are fantastic. It is just rapid fire tap dance, accompanied by a wonderful band and beatbox. And there's one girl in the company. Her name is Helena, and she holds her own with every one of the dancers, and they appreciate her, and so do I, for doing all that she does.
My daughter was in New York a month or so ago, and she mentioned that she and the girlfriend went to a Broadway show or what have you. You hear this stuff on TV about people, let's catch a show tonight, whatever. You ain't got to go to New York.
No, you can come here and catch a show. There are lots of places in Paducah to come catch a show, and I'm not the only venue that has some wonderful programming. I, of course, want you to come here, and see our shows. And ticket prices, we didn't talk about that either. One of the missions of the college and of the Clemens Fine Arts Center is to make our programming affordable. So you can see any of the things that we just talked about as an adult for $25 per show. You can buy a season ticket for $100, which brings it down to $20 a show. If you're a student, then the price is, I believe, $45, or you can do it by semester and do 3 shows in any one semester for $25. So, you know, and then if our students still can't afford that, and some of them can't, you know, being in school stuff, we say come early and usher, and then stay and hang out and watch the show.
I know of some young people from Paducah, Kentucky, who finished Tillman here, whatever, who were involved in some of the activities that go on downtown involving the theater and acting and who attended so many of the things that you help to bring out here, who are now about those things out there somewhere in the world, very much about them.
Right.
Serious about them.
You know, I can't help but think about the Abraham sisters. You know,
yes,
they performed here together in shows, you know, as well as alone, you know, without the other one, and they're both, you know, very talented young women. And now Mickey is away doing theater. Right. And I love that. Robert Sharkey, who is another student, is away doing theater. And it happens the same way with our TV guys.
And a lot of it may be attributed to, at some point in time when they were very small or young growing up, somebody brought them to a show out here.
Or somebody took them to a show anywhere. I remember my first real theater experience, and it was at the Fox in St. Louis. I was a student at then Paducah Community College, and I went to see Man of La Mancha starring Robert Goulet. I knew then that I either wanted to be on that stage or make other people come and sit and watch what was on that stage.
Very grateful for what you do, Gail, and I hope that people will take even more advantage of the many things that you're about bringing.
Right, and it's not just these 5 shows. We also have a visual arts series. We have a keynote series. We conduct a big community-wide one book, one campus, one community read. This year it's Christina Baker Klein's New York Times bestseller, Orphan Train, which actually traveled through Paducah. And then we have a Backstage Pass Coffee House series.
Wow, that is so cool. Got a dash, Gail.
Got a dash.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I hope in the future that I can be more attentive when things are going on.
Do I need to call you and say, Jimmy,
that's what I was saying.
Brothers?
Somebody else did we need to do a show. I said, yes, ma'am. Okay. Please take advantage of some of these things. They're beautiful things to involve your children with, especially. Some of us old folk got to take a shot, too. For Minority Focus, I'm Jimmie Moore.